In tonight's Dateline Defense, a call for due diligence. Last year, Congress passed a $1.1 trillion spending bill. It contains about $572 billion for defense in 2016. Critics like Senator John McCain call it wasteful, unnecessary, and filled with inappropriate pork barrel projects. McCain's not alone. Joining me with the latest is Colonel Douglas Macgregor. He's a decorated combat veteran, PhD, Executive Vice President of the Burke-McGregor Group, and his latest book, Margin of Victory, will be out later this year. Doug, let's walk through a few areas of concern, starting with the Littoral Combat Ship. What is this program and where does it stand?
The Littoral Combat Ship has the unfortunate nickname inside the Navy as being the little crappy ship. Because in all of the exercises they conduct and any of the operations that they model in simulation, it's usually the first thing that is sunk by any opposing force. And frankly, it is seen as adding nothing of combat value or utility to the fleet. So it was designed to be something that would operate in shallow waters. The truth is that anything that operates in shallow waters on the surface isn't going to last long in any case, but this thing goes down very quickly.
Now, you argue the Navy should invest more funding and attention in unmanned underwater vehicles. Why?
Absolutely. Listen, unmanned systems beneath the surface or semi-submersibles on the surface are really the future of naval warfare. The Navy has made a lot of advances in this area. They have a long way to go, but these vessels are very difficult to detect. And if you're going to operate in shallow waters, that's the way you want to do it, because a manned submarine isn't going to survive very long in shallow water either. So this is really the future. I think the Navy understands that, and they're allocating resources accordingly.
All right, let's move on to the Air Force. They need to modernize a lot of equipment, but some argue big-ticket items like the F-35, the plane that ate the Pentagon, are holding them back. Tell us more.
Well, the F-35 is really the tip of a very large iceberg. Right now, people refer to the Air Force budget as this bow wave, the long-range strike bomber, which people are saying is going to cost $100 billion, will undoubtedly cost 2 or 3 times that amount. The F-35, the super stealth aircraft that continues to disappoint in most of the training and exercises they conduct, is a multi-billion dollar proposition with dubious outcome. If you put these things together, quite frankly, the Air Force budget sinks the Defense Department. And there's another problem here. People are not looking at the alternatives to these very, very expensive investments in replacing old platforms with new versions of themselves. Instead of looking at new strike systems, ground launched, sea launched, at lots of unmanned alternatives that can fly close to IADs or integrated air defenses and then launch weapons, we're just trying to replenish the old force with new stuff, new versions of the old solutions. That's not ever a good idea.
Personnel is also a big part of this equation. Army Times reports that branch wants to hire new troops to serve as general's aides. Are these positions important?
Well, I think...
Wouldn't you like to have one?
The answer to that question is pretty self-evident. No. Look, we have...
you may have too many generals. Now they need more aides.
We've got roughly 11 Army 4-stars, 9 or 10 Air Force 4-stars, several Marine 4-stars. I don't know how many Navy 4-stars. During World War II, when we had over 6 million men in the United States Army, we had a total of only 4 4-stars on active duty. Somehow or another, these 4 4-stars managed to command the forces and win the war. Today, for an Army of about 450 to 475,000, we've got 11 4-stars. It just doesn't make any sense. The joint community, the joint overhead, the single service overhead, all of it needs to be reduced.
Now, Doug, you wrote an op-ed in Defense One last month that calls for due diligence. Explain that term for us as you understand it.
Well, due diligence, as most of your viewers who are in business know, is something that any prudent businessman engages in when he decides to buy another corporation or another company, add it to his portfolio. He examines it very carefully. It's to ensure that he gets a return on his investment. We haven't done much due diligence in defense for a very long time. I did want to compliment Secretary Carter for cutting back on the number of littoral combat ships, but that's really, again, a very modest change. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got lots of systems, lots of modernization programs that we devised 10 years ago that are ongoing that frankly don't make any sense anymore. And Eisenhower was very good as president at canceling these things, especially things he knew would be obsolete the day they were fielded.
Doesn't happen anymore. It seems then you've got all these presidential candidates who say we're going to build up defense and spend more on the military. It's just become another big bureaucracy at this point.
Well, the only one that has said anything that makes sense, to be frank, is Mr. Trump, and he has said defense is a disaster. Yes, Mr. Trump is right. When you look at the overhead that you spoke of earlier with a multitude of 4-stars, these enormous commands that we have as legacies from the Cold War, then these overly expensive modernization programs designed to make the old force live another 10 or 20 years, we are a disaster. It's going to take a president with real guts, real determination, backed by a Congress to go in and make fundamental change in defense.
Doug, you've got my vote. Colonel Douglas Macgregor with us tonight. Thanks again, Doug.
Thank you.